Pat Flynn, welcome back to Dad Edge, man.
It's good to be back. It's been a while.
It's been a minute. You and I were talking before we got started, and you and I broke bread together with a larger group of people in St. Louis. It was 8 years ago now.
Yes, we broke crust together, pizza crust.
We did. We absolutely did. And so I know a lot of the audience knows who you are, but I'm curious, man. Let's start with little Pat, like childhood
Little Pat.
Right.
Okay. Well, I was little Pat through high school. I mean, I was a short kid, if you want to. And that had, honestly, it had a lot to do with my self-esteem and lower self-esteem. You know, I was a short kid. The funny thing was I was big when I was born. I was 11 pounds, 12 ounces.
What?
When I was born. Yeah. I haven't really grown much since then for anybody who's met me. But I thought my parents thought I was going to be this giant kid, right? Which was weird because my mom is only 4'11". So first of all, 4'11", 11 pounds, 12 ounces. I don't know. I don't really believe in physics and geometry anymore after that. Number two, they all thought I was going to be this giant kid. And up until first grade, I was always the biggest kid in the class and whatnot. And then, I don't know, I just stopped growing. And all my friends continued to grow. And of course, I was into sports and I was very competitive. And it didn't really do good for me being this competitive kid, always being the shortest in the class, shortest in the team and all this stuff. So it was hard. And in high school, definitely had a lot of low self-esteem. Always tried to want to be friends with the coolest people and just didn't think highly of myself and whatnot. And, I got bullied. I got picked on quite a bit. And I thankfully found refuge in the marching band. I became a huge band nerd, played the trumpet, and even through college. In college is really where I grew mentally more than anywhere. But the band with all the other weirdos is where I found my home, really. How far do you want to go back? Like I could just go for days about little Pat because I'm definitely different than I was back then.
Well, I have 4 boys and my oldest is 14 and he is like, that's the reason I got the guitar back here is because he loves band and we play music together and he is way more musically talented than I'm 45. I just started playing that thing like 10 months ago. Nice. And it was all because of him, but no, he really enjoys band, but yeah, like what sports were you into as a kid?
So I was definitely into baseball. I went to baseball camp. I was a pitcher. I was one of the younger kids who could actually throw over the plate. So that I became a pitcher and I really loved it. But then again, the kids started to grow much faster and bigger than me. And my fastball wasn't a fastball anymore at some point. And so, I just kind of wasn't doing really good in the competitive baseball space. But I was a fast kid too. And I was like, okay, I'm small and fast. What sports would be great for that? Probably not football, probably not lacrosse, soccer. That's where it's at. And I played soccer all throughout high school. And more of my time was dedicated to band, so I wasn't on the high school team, but I did play club soccer all throughout high school and even soccer through college, more just kind of fun competitive leagues, not on the team. I did also really enjoy in college, I joined the lightweight, of course, rowing team. And that was a huge, big, life-changing thing for me to do. In fact, there's some really interesting stories to unpack there, which we could potentially get into. But yeah, when I was a kid, it was mostly soccer because I was fast. And I also, the thing that I think I was great at when it came to soccer, I wasn't the strongest. So, I wasn't a good tackler or anything, but I could see things that other people couldn't. I could always lead the forwards and pass the ball in a way where I knew they could break out and break through and have a one-on-one against the goalie. I could see things. I was like the Wayne Gretzky of, little soccer leagues. And I could pass the ball. Like I had the highest assists every year. Nice. And it's not necessarily because I was like, it's not like I was I'm not like, I was so unselfish. It's just like, that's what I knew we could do to win. I was like, that's my superpower. Let's get the fast people up front. I'll pass it to where they need to go. And boom, we would win like every game. And it's so fun. But yeah, that's kind of who I was back then.
That's awesome. And well, at least you stayed in your lane, right? You knew what your skill was, you knew what your talent was, and that's where you played. So that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into some of the lessons you learned in rowing, but going back, so we'll hit that, but I definitely want to talk about your parents. What was your childhood like as far as relationship with your own father and your mom?
Yeah, we had a great relationship. I loved my parents. They loved me. I could feel it. But they were also pretty hard on me, especially my dad for certain things. Very traditional upbringing, lower to middle class. Very much we can't afford it. We can't afford it kind of situation when it came to money. Money was always a thing that bothered me because I wanted more of it to get more toys and more cards and more things like that. And I would always hear that excuse. And then I would also overhear my parents fighting about money a lot. And so I just had this sort of condition of like, money is evil, money is bad, and I need to make as much of it as possible so that I can never have the same kinds of fights and things like that. So I was very driven in school to get that 4.2 grade point average, to go to the best college, to study all night, because I wanted a great job. I wanted a great career. I didn't want to have money ever be an issue. And of course, many people know my story about getting laid off in 2008. So it was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Money will be an issue. What am I going to do? And then I started my business after that. But going back to my parents, I mean, I think the big thing that I took away from them, from my mom, very much a giving person, always wanted to do things for other people's first. And I think that's where I got that from. And my dad always about, planning for the future, thinking ahead of time. And the thing about my dad though, like especially, education was very important to him. I would come home from school with a 97% on my math test, right? Super stoked, almost an A+. And I'd come home, show it to him, and he'd be like, okay, well, what happened to the other 3%? And then we'd work for the next 3-4 hours, just on the things that I got wrong. Not really even ever getting a congratulations or like a good job. More like, okay, well, let's focus on the things that you missed, because we want to get perfect, right? And I credit my dad for giving me a hard, strong work ethic, always trying to, do my best at everything, which I really appreciate. But at the same time, it definitely conditioned me to be like, okay, anything but perfect is not okay. Right. And so especially when it came to college, and then of course in the career, in my architecture career, anything that wasn't perfect wasn't okay. So of course, getting laid off again, oh my gosh, I'm not perfect. What did I do wrong? I'm going to focus on all the negatives here, because that's how I was conditioned. And it took me a while to get out of that. And thankfully had a lot of help, a lot of accountability. Shout out to my then fiance, now wife, April, for providing a ton of support for me mentally during that time. And we got out of it together. And of course, things are going extremely well now. And I've since then learned that perfection is just an excuse. Perfection is, in fact, a crutch. And now I look for things that test me, that I get nervous about, and I try to fail as fast as possible, because now I know those failures and mistakes are in fact learning moments if I want to learn from them. I once heard that with whatever you set your mind to do, if you do it, you either get the result you want or the lesson you needed. And I'm like, okay, either way, it's going to be a win. And that's how I progress moving forward.
And your parents, they're still with us, correct?
They're still with us. Yep. Okay. They both live about 15 minutes away from me, and we're just getting older. And my dad enjoys the crossword puzzle. My mom seems to rearrange the house every time we visit. It's just, that's what they do. But they're good people. I love them, and they're there for us. And it's awesome. It's a good relationship.
Were you an only child?
I was an only child. Okay. Yes. I was born a little bit later in their life. And so my dad was like mid 40s when he had me. My mom was late 30s. So biologically, it just didn't make sense to have another child for safety reasons. And I always wanted a brother or sister, though. I even remember this one time, my parents, I was, 4 or 5. And I still have vivid memories of this because they just couldn't stop laughing about it. But I had asked for a brother for Christmas. I didn't know how children were made.
Right.
And my mom comes back with a JCPenney catalog. And she goes, okay, which one do you want? And they just like laugh at me the whole, and I'm like literally like going through it, trying to, oh, which one would be good? Like, oh, I think I could play games with him, or, and I just have vivid memories of that. And that was just like a fun little funny moment. And we bring that up every once in a while in conversations at the dinner table at Christmas or whatever. But yeah, only child. I think that also attributed to me being very resourceful and also finding fun ways to have fun with whatever's around me. I have a lot of like weird, stupid human tricks, just things that I've learned how to do. Like it's just that I did that with my mouth. For those of you listening, it's just like all these silly things that I've just done to fill up my time. And I don't know, a lot of video games too, by the way.
Oh man, that's quite a story. Number one, I'm picturing you with the JCPenney catalog, be like, that one, maybe, I don't know, maybe I can't decide between these two. So that is hilarious. You mentioned that your dad was hard on you, right? But it sounds like you said, your words, you really learned work ethic, from him, right? What is your relationship with him now, as far as, closeness and just looking back on what you've learned from him and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I learned a lot about that. I mean, he was always there for me. I mean, although he was hard on me with grades and stuff, he's gone to every band recital, every sports thing. Like he was always there, which is great. Now, the interesting thing is, with education being very key in our relationship, when I got laid off, the thing that he recommended to do was go back to school, to go get a master's degree, because and he was right. I could go back to school. I have the time. I have some money, and I could potentially even get a scholarship or something. And I could get my master's degree, come back. And then when we're out of the Great Recession, then, I'll be that much more ahead. And he was right. But at the same time, internally, I was like, you know what? Like, I did everything the way I was supposed to. I was 100% perfect, and I still got let go. I need to do something where if I fail, it's because I know I made a mistake, or I want to do something where I have a little bit more control. And I told him that eventually, once I learned about this world of online business and entrepreneurship, that I was going to try this and give it a go. And he's like, okay, well, okay, you could dabble in it and try it, but I think you should eventually look for a real job, and all those kinds of excuses that entrepreneurs hear when they share this with people that aren't in that world. And eventually, because I was also very open with my business online, and he started following the blog, he started to see how much money I was making because I was sharing that openly to inspire others. And he eventually got to the point where he was like, wow, okay, your income has completely surpassed what you would have made having been in architecture for 30 years, let alone just getting a master's degree. Like, you seem to know what you're doing. Go for it. And I support you. And when I got that, it was really cool. And, now he reads my blog posts. He'll email me and be like, hey, there was a spelling error on your last blog post. And I'm like, thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. But, he reads he's a fan. He came to watch me speak on stage a couple years ago when I did the closing keynote at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, a crowd in front of 5,000 people, most people I've ever spoken in front of. My dad was in the crowd, and just people were saying that he was just beaming the whole time when he was watching me. And I got to talk to him after, and he was like, hey, I'm very proud of you. And to go from hey, you missed those 3 questions on that test, to him watching me on stage, I think it was really cool. And I think part of it's because he's somebody who had worked the same job for 45 years, increasing his status on that corporate ladder, graduated or retired, was able to support his family, pension fund. It worked, but things are different now. And I think he's realized that. And I think that I also have some skills that I have been able to hone in on, the ability to build a connection with people online, the ability to take these very complicated things and share them in a way on a website, on a video, to make things easier for people. And we live in a completely different world than when he grew up, So I'm very, very thankful for the relationship we have. And, he's there, and we check in on each other every once in a while. We're here in the Flynn household quite busy, so we don't see them as much as probably we could, but honestly, things are good. And, we have a good relationship. I'm very thankful for how things turned out.
Man, that is so cool. And what a proud father moment, right? I mean, I'm picturing your dad watching you on stage in front of 5,000 people, with this big smile on his face. I mean, that is what every father truly wants. Is just to see their kids step into something that brings them joy, or do the work that makes them come alive, and just have that moment where it's like, man, now that's it. That's it right there.
That's cool. It was a cool moment for both of us, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. So, going back to 2008, were you and April married at the time when you got laid off?
So the timeline is, first of all, we both went to high school together, in fact, but we didn't date in high school. I had a little crush on her, but she was 2 grades older than me, so that was never going to happen. If you're a girl in high school, you date a younger boy, you're going to get voted off the island. You just don't do that. So I knew that. So I didn't even try. But then we became good friends. We continued to meet each other during holidays, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, have lunch traditionally when we were in the same town or in the same location. And then one year, 2005, we had our traditional, dinner. And I was like, hey, so how's your boyfriend doing? And she's like, oh, we broke up. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because I and my girlfriend, we broke up too. And we're like, oh my God, like this is the first time we're both single. Yeah. And we had known about each other's boyfriends and girlfriends every time we get together. That's what we talk about. So here we are, like nothing to talk about because just we're both single for the first time. So we celebrate. We're like, all right, cider, let's go get it. And so we go, we drink, have a few drinks, and then we end up like getting together that night because we just, you know, it was kind of fate that it worked out. And so there's a lot more to that story. I end up, I was working in Berkeley at the time, and she was in Pomona in mid-California, and I was living with my ex-girlfriend. So that complicated matters for sure. But things worked out, and I ended up moving to Irvine, California to go to a different architecture firm. And then in 2008, March 31st, 2008, I proposed to her, and she said yes. June 17th, 2008, I get laid off like 2 months later. And I had this perfect plan, perfect vision. We were going to get ready and it's wedding, and we're both Filipino. I'm half Filipino. She's full Filipino. And when you're Filipino and you have a wedding, you invite everybody, even your babysitter from when you were 6 years old or whatever. It's like, you know, it's going to be a big wedding. So we're like, oh my gosh. So we both moved back in with our parents to save money. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm like going to these Amway meetings that people tell me about to like MLM stuff. And I'm just like, oh, this is just, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. And then thankfully I listened to a podcast called Internet Business Mastery with these two dudes who are just real, down to earth, Jason and Jeremy. And I heard an interview with a guy named Cornelius Fitchner on the show, teaching people how to pass a project management exam. And he was making 6 figures a year doing it. And I was like, yo, there's something there for me. I think that was my light bulb moment.
Wow. And is it, I'm sorry, Green, what academy?
Greenexamacademy.com. And that website still exists. Yeah. It's been up for 12 years. I haven't touched it for the last 7, but it still continues to bring a few $1,000s in every single month because the links go to the right places and all that stuff. It was making, in the time when I was, you know, really starting it and pushing forward with it full on, it was making $25,000 to $30,000 a month, which was just insane. And then I started smartpassiveincome.com to share with others how that all happened. And I just started to notice that I was going to be able to make an even bigger impact on this website. And now with a podcast with over 65 million downloads and multiple books, bestsellers, keynote speeches, courses, a membership website, all this kind of stuff. Like I literally every day have messages come in. It's like, Pat, you've helped me spend more time with my family. You've helped change my life. You've helped me get more income. And it's just like, wow, this is like, I'm just paying it forward. Somebody helped me in the same way, and I'm just paying it forward. And I know they're going to pay it forward too. You know, I'm here to make the internet a better place and hopefully provide some sort of space and sanctuary for people who might be struggling, and then just provide some either motivation, education, hopefully some entertainment at the same time, and help push them forward. So that's why I'm here.
Did you ever think in a million years when you started smartpassiveincome.com that it would be where it's at?
No, never. SPI wasn't even like, I wasn't thinking about, oh, how am I going to make money with this website? I was already making money on this other website. I just built it and I was like, you know what? I'm going to share everything for free. I'm going to be fully transparent. I'm going to share how much money I'm making, where it's coming from, what I wish I would have done differently. Because everybody in the space that I was getting into, the internet, quote unquote, internet marketing space, was super shady, right? They were like, ooh, we'll give you push button, get rich quick access for only $999 today, but you're saving like 4,000% on it. So, you know, or whatever, like this, all this stuff. And I'm just like, I'm just going to come in and be real. And the interesting thing happened was I was quickly seen as the guy who was just giving it all away for free. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I started to learn about this thing called affiliate marketing, mm-hmm. where I could promote products that I use, software that I use, other people's programs that I use, and just be like, hey guys, I use this and I recommend it. Here's my affiliate link. If you click on it, I get like $30 if you do it. And I started making like 80,000, 90,000, not right away. It took like a year and a half to get to the point where I started to see any money on Smart Passive Income, but eventually got to the point where I was making 6 figures a month with this thing. And I still am. And it's just unreal. But it's cool because not only am I making money, I've learned that the money is a byproduct of how well we serve our audience. So I'm getting thanked and I'm making money. Like everybody wins. And I love that. And this is the kind of marketing that I teach. I want people to start a business in a way where they can get thanked and get paid at the same time. You can sell and serve at the same time, which is pretty cool. And that's kind of my philosophy.
And let's talk to the dads right now. It's that concept right there, because a lot of us, I think the attitude out there, at least in our community, we have a Facebook group of fathers with thousands of guys in it, right? Mm-hmm. And we will put posts up there sometimes, just checking in on men. Are you enjoying the intimacy in your marriage that you've always wanted? If not, what would you change? We put things like that. We put a post up not too long ago, and it was, are you doing the work that makes you come alive? Are you doing the job that brings you the most joy and making money? And the comments, 90% of them were like, no, this is awful. But it was almost, in a way, two themes really emerged from that one post. And that was, there was like this nobility that came out of, I have to do work that I hate because that's sacrifice. Right.
Right.
And then the other one, pretty fascinating, was, well, it's not right to do what you love and make money, because that seems shady, right? And I had a mentor of mine not too long ago that told me, if you can literally do the work that makes you come alive and put food on the table or be insanely profitable, that is a fulfilling life. But so many of us have this guilt of like, well, should I enjoy this and make money?
Right.
Should I enjoy this and make a lot of money? Like, that maybe feels weird to me, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting and it's so true. I think we're just all conditioned to believe that, the harder you work, the better things are, despite you maybe not even being completely happy about it. And I think a lot of this stuff is coming from a genuine place of, I'm here to serve my family first, right? I don't want to be happy if I know that I can sort of keep my kids safe and keep my wife happy and put food on the table and a roof over our head. Like I'm okay being unhappy to do that. But also at the same time, what I think about is like, if you're unhappy, then other people can totally see that. And what happens is you start to have this like aura about you that then bleeds into other parts of your life, your friendships, your relationships, your parenthood. And is that the kind of example that you want to set, especially for your kids? Are you going to would you legit sit down with your kid and say, hey, Johnny, as long as you are making money and supporting your family, it's okay if you're not happy. Like, would you actually say that? Probably not, right? I mean, that's deep. But guess what? We're saying that to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? And so I always lead and try to lead by example. And I try to live a life that I would want my kids to go, wow, I'm thankful my dad set that tone for me and set that example. Or my dad showed me that you can be happy and make money at the same time. My dad showed me that you don't have to know everything in order to be great. Right? Like all this kind of stuff, a lot of it kind of being counter to how I was raised. Like if my kids make a mistake, I'm like, that's awesome. Like, what did you learn from it? Versus like, why did you get that wrong? Like, you should know that, right? It's just, I know a lot of us parent opposite of how we were parented sometimes. But when it comes down to it, like the other thing is like, well, why not? Why can't you be happy? I think a lot of it also has to do with who we surround ourselves with. A lot of times we default to that answer because we feel like then, well, maybe we would be better than others who aren't able to do that, or they might look down on us. We live in this world that's like a bucket of crabs. I don't know if you've heard of this analogy before, but if you get a bucket of live crabs, you will never ever have to worry about any of them crawling out, because as soon as one tries to crawl out, the other crabs take their claws and bring that one back down, because it's like, no, be here. We're safer together, right? And you're not allowed to get out there and explore or do something that maybe you want to do because we're here. You need to be here. But when you surround yourself with people who are like that, then how in the world are you going to even explore and be able to potentially find that happiness, versus putting yourself around people? And this is why it's really cool that you have this Facebook group and this community, because now we're able to have these open conversations and discuss and have these findings and the ability to at least open our minds a little bit more to that fact that yes, you can be happy and make money doing it. And when you are happy, you are better able to serve others, your family, your kids. You're able to have more energy. And we only have one life. I mean, YOLO, for real. You only live once. And I want to live every day like it's the best day ever. And that's how I'm going to act. That's how I'm going to think. And even if things go wrong, that doesn't necessarily have to affect the next thing that I choose to do. Right. That's one thing that I've taught my kids recently is like, if you get off on the wrong side of the bed, even though technically, yes, their bed's all on a wall and they can only get off one side. But, if they wake up and they have start having a bad day, I'm like, okay, you now have a choice. Do you want the rest of the day to be bad? Because if you do, it's going to be very easy. Every little thing that goes wrong, you're going to use. And this is this thing called confirmation bias. You're going to be like, see, bad day, stubbed my toe. I knew it was going to be a bad day. What else bad is going to happen? Oh my gosh, my car is taking forever to start. Bad day. Like you just look for that confirmation, or you put that hand down when the dominoes are going and you stop it from continuing forward and you go, okay, that happened, but what happens next? That has nothing to do with it. Let's just keep going with our day and actually make it great. I also practice gratitude and gratefulness with the kids as well. We often at the dinner table go, okay, what are you grateful for today? Right. And those conversations are really key in my opinion. But anyway, going back to your original statement, like, I think we just don't know that it's possible. We don't think it's possible, which is why when you surround yourself with others and you see and hear other people's success stories, that is what can be motivating. And you got to find the right mentor, the right person who perhaps is living the life that you would love to live, and then just follow them, get inspired by them, get motivated by them. That's how I learned what to do. I followed people who have already done it and who are already there. And now they've paved the way. They are helping me not make as many mistakes. And, I can visualize my path versus just being complacent and thinking that it always has to be the way it is.
Man, I just want to love on you for a second, because out of over 600 episodes that I've recorded on this podcast, I've never once heard it stated like you just stated, which is, would you ever actually sit your child down and say, hey man, or girl, right? As long as you're making money, your happiness is kind of secondary. Okay. Just so you know.
Right.
But yet that's like the bully between our two ears that we tell ourselves and that we settle for. So that is incredibly reassuring to hear that. You've got a second grader and a fifth grader and a boy and a girl, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what are the conversations like at your kitchen table? What do the Flynn's talk about besides gratitude?
Yeah, I mean, gratitude for sure. When the kids were going into school, because right now they're virtually learning,
right? Which has
just been it's cool and interesting, and it's just there's been some really cool things that have happened since they have been learning at home. Right? They still go to school; they're on Zoom, which is just insane to know that like second graders know what Zoom is and how to go on a conference call and like all this stuff. It's just insane. But what's been really cool, and I've written about this, there's been a really cool byproduct, at least in the Flynn household. They now are masters of their time. They know how to time manage because they're not on a Zoom call for 8 hours. They're on a call for 30 minutes. They go do an activity. They have to come back by 11:50 a.m. They're checking the clock. They're making sure they get there early. They're punctual. They know that their attendance and that matters to the teachers and their lesson plan. And if they're late, they might miss something. So it's like they're learning how to manage their own time. For when we're growing up, usually or what we're used to is we're used to a bell telling us when to go to certain places. Now they're on their own. They're being proactive. I think that's really cool. But honestly, either way, at the dinner table, one question. I love questions. Questions are my favorite thing in the world, right? I coach using questions. I parent using questions. One of the favorite questions that I ask is, well, hey, what can you teach me today? And that's my absolute favorite question to ask because it puts my kids on a level where they are now the teachers and I am the student. And I want them to understand that anybody can be a teacher and anybody can help others learn. And so just kind of ingraining that in their brain every single day, it allows me to also understand what they're learning in school without just going, hey, what'd you learn today? Nothing. How was school today? Fine. It's like, no, what can you teach me today? It's like, oh. And then they get into it because they know that they have now power. And I'm giving them a little bit of that. And in exchange, I get to hear how excited they are about something. I get to map where they want to go with that. I get to even dig a little bit deeper and explore more about why they are interested or went that direction. And we just start talking about whatever it is that they're excited about. And that's the other thing, I try to have them guide where the conversations are going because I want them to just continually interact and stay excited and know that there's value in, speaking up and sharing their thoughts with their parents. And my goal and April's goal, and she's really to credit for a lot of this, is I want us to, when the kids are teenagers or they're older, I don't want them to be afraid at all to come to us if they need anything. I want them to be open about things, however comfortable they feel doing it. But I want them to know that they have somebody that they could talk to always. Like, even if things get really bad, it's never going to get as bad as they won't have us to chat with and talk to. So those are the kinds of things we like to do in the house. We also like to talk about plans. Like, hey, what's something you're really excited about right now? Right. That's one of my favorite. I think I've taken a lot of what I've learned as a podcaster and brought it to the dinner table. It's so fun. One of my favorite tricks that I've learned, actually, I got this from a book called Never Split the Difference. And it's by this guy who, I think Chris Voss is his name. Yeah. And there's this tactic that he uses. He was an FBI investigator, and he would do hostage negotiations, right? So I've brought the hostage negotiation tactics to the dinner table, people. And this is what I do. So whenever my kids tell me an answer to a question, I mirror it. And I don't know if you've read this book, but mirroring essentially just means you just restate the last part of that answer in a question format to give them permission to continue talking. Because when you are a hostage negotiator, information is gold. You want that information, right? As a parent, information is gold to me too. So if I'm like, hey, would you learn, or what can you teach me today? And they go, oh, today, did you know that, I don't know, just let me give you an example. Did you know that, a pack of seals or a baby seal is called a pup? And I'm like, a baby seal is called a pup? She's like, yeah, they're like dogs, right? And we keep going. And it's just like this chain. And that was maybe a poor example. It's hard to make this up, but like, it's just cool because that just gives them permission to keep talking. And it's one of my favorite things to do. I use that. I'm just making sure my wife's not hearing me, because I actually do use this strategy in our conversations too. Right. It's an amazing way for us dads to help our ladies understand that we are listening and we want to know more, versus just, right? Mirror. And dude, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Sounds like communication is really important to you.
1,000%.
No, I say that, and I know this show is not about Chris. I've had Chris on the show twice.
Oh, no way. Sweet.
I've read his book well over 10 times. I joined Masterclass just so I could watch him. My entire communication style with my kids and wife is based on Chris Voss.
Oh, that's cool.
Mirroring, labels, tactical empathy, never asking the question why. I love using those last 3 words, that when kids are like, oh my gosh, like so-and-so pushed me on the ground in recess. So-and-so pushed you on the ground? Versus like, why do they do that? Why are you so upset about it? Right. Versus like, you just mirror them and they're going to tell you more information. Right. And, the other thing too, you mentioned in there, you sprinkled in there that you want the kids to be able to come to you no matter what. Right. So it really sounds like creating an environment of psychological safety is really important to you and April. And we're the same way here. We have a statement that we live by, and that is, your honesty and ownership is celebrated and not punished. In other words, come to us with all your dirty laundry. Like, share everything, and you're not going to be shamed. You're not going to be guilted. We'll have a conversation about it, right? But if you lie to me, or if I have to find out that you lied to me, then that we go in a different direction. But I mean, my kids, especially the older two, the 12 and 14-year-old, they will share things. Like my 14-year-old, and I won't get into the details for his privacy, but he shared something with me that he had been doing. And I was like, I would have never shared that when I was his age. But that, I think when you create an environment like you're talking about, right? Because it's almost like, hey, kids, this is the safe place to land. Okay. Like, bring it here. That's so important. And I feel like a lot of parents miss out on that opportunity. And I think a lot of it comes from also, they're so terrified to see their kids fail, do something wrong, make a mistake, and then they just drive right over them, with it.
Dude, yeah. I like when my kids make mistakes. I like when they fail. I don't want them to fail, but I like it because I know that if they fight through it, it's a lesson that they're going to take with them forever. Right? Like, they can do it. And I have to struggle April's a little bit better at this than me, but like sometimes if they're struggling with something, I'm just like, oh, let me do it for you. And I'm just like, okay, I can't. I have to let them figure this out on their own. As much as I know the answer, as much as we're late for something or whatever, I'm just like, no, this is a lesson that they're going to learn. And the more this continues to come up, the longer this takes to solve, then the more ingrained that's going to be. So let's solve this now. Let's fix it now. I'd much rather do it that way. To comment on what you had just said about, being open and having honesty, that's really important to us as well. And it has to happen from our side as well. If we make a mistake, we need to own up to it. And that's something that I think my parents and a lot of traditional parents just didn't do. I know my in-laws, they don't admit fault. They don't much. And as even my parents, it's shameful to be wrong or to say sorry. It means that you were not perfect again. And for me in April, it's like if we do something and it didn't go the way we thought it was going to, or we did something and it made somebody feel bad, we'll apologize right away. We'll talk about it and we'll say what we wish we would have done differently so that we can receive the same thing on the other end. And I think that it always has to be a two-way street, right? So that's something that we're trying to instill into our kids is like, we're not perfect either. Mm-hmm. And together we can help each other. Together we can grow. We're a unit. We're a family unit. We are an alliance, right? So let's work together to get better all together and that kind of thing. So yeah, this is great. I often don't get to talk about these things a lot because I usually come on podcasts and I'm like, here's my email strategy for more course sales. So I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, man. And I'd love to segue into, how you go about your marriage with April. And yeah, that this show, it's really dedicated to these conversations, right? So the men in the audience can really listen and take bits and pieces and implement them in their own life. And I've followed you for a long time. I followed you even before I launched my own blog. Because you and I, we have a mutual friend, Sean Stevenson. I've known Sean since 2012.
Yeah,
and Sean helped me launch Good Dad Project, my first website. I hired him as a coach to help me with that. And he's like, "Hey, man, you got to check out Pat Flynn." I remember writing Smart Passive Income in a notebook.
That's cool.
And I remember listening to your podcast and you always talked about business. You always talked about, strategy and that kind of thing. But there was always this background hum that was there with your family. You always talked about, at the time, you only had, I believe in 2012, you had just your son, correct?
Yeah, our daughter was about to be born.
Right. But you always talked about your kids and you always talked about family and you always talked about developing business so you can live the life that you truly want to live and have freedom of your time to spend those moments with your family. Like there was always this very genuine way about you that family was everything and still is everything to you. Completely. And that comes across just, it shines bright in your brand. It shines bright in your podcast. I just want to acknowledge that about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet. As we kind of get to the last segment of the show, as far as marriage goes, what are some, actually, here's a question I love to ask. If you were to sit down to dinner with Pat previous to marrying April, and you're just sitting right across, you guys are breaking bread and you're like, all right, man, here's the deal. Here's the advice I have for you. Here's all the cool things that are going to happen during marriage. And here's some of the lessons and here's what's in store for you. What would you tell them?
Like if I could time travel, you're saying, and go back to younger Pat? Cool. I love time travel. So I appreciate that. Big Back to the Future fan, by the way. I would say, number one, listen. Like actively listen to your spouse, please. There was a moment after we just got married, April was pregnant and we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment and I was just starting my business. Things were going pretty crazy with the business and I was thinking about it 24/7. Like I couldn't go to bed. And of course, newly married, wanted to have conversations with my wife and talk about the future together. We were having a kid and there was one conversation we were having where her mouth was moving, but I was thinking about the business and the next email and sales and all this sort of stuff. And she called me.
Real quick before you start, I know exactly what you're going to say because I've heard you talk about this story, but yeah, Please go ahead. You're thinking about your business, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Like she called me out. She knew that I wasn't there. I was there physically, but not mentally.
Right.
And I was like, she was like, we were thinking about your business, aren't you? Like you said. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? I've been listening this whole time. And she's like, well, what did I just say? And I was like, oh crap. Okay.
I hate that question if you're not paying attention.
Right. And then I literally just said, you're thinking about your business, aren't you? Which is obviously not what you meant for me to say. And so, I warmed up the couch that night. That was nice, but it was a very nice, it was a very important conversation to have. It sometimes takes a breaking point for you to go, whoa, okay, something's wrong here. Right. And that's okay. That was sort of our big first fight that we had, but those fights are necessary. I found, right. Those failure points become lessons to be learned, and growth can happen from them, right? Just think about how a muscle is made, right? You break down the muscles, you're lifting weights, only to have them rebuild and grow even stronger, right? And that's kind of, you got to flex that muscle in your marriage too. So sometimes, April and I, we have conversations that would potentially cause a little bit of a stir. But it's important for us to do this in a controlled manner, in a space. We don't necessarily have like, all right, honey, every Friday at 9 p.m. when the kids are down, we have a meeting to talk about these things. That's not, I know some families who do that, and that's cool too. It's, I've heard of people running their family like they run their business, and I agree with that to a point, but we don't have like weekly meetings in that sense. But we do, when we have time alone, we do talk about the future and what's going well and what we could probably do better. And we openly share with regards to the other person, like what we wish we could get more of from the other. And it goes both ways. And I think that communication and just having that open forum and talking about these things up front and allowing that to happen without pressure, without worry, without, potentially consequences is really key, because then we can have actual discussions to potentially get to the next point and make things better, right? If anything needs to be made better. But the other thing that really drives us is, well, what are we doing this for? Like, where are we going? Right? Not in the sense that like, hey, where's this relationship going? It's like, hey, what do we have to look forward to? Like, let's dream, let's continue to dream together, right? We have our dream home, we have our dream family, we have our dream puppy, but we got to continue to dream so we can continue to have reasons to keep going and working together and loving together and supporting the family. Like, we love to have like a 3-year plan for what we could potentially do and the kind of fun things that we can unlock if things go well. And, with the business behind it and the relationships and whatnot, having some sort of like really big goal that we could shoot for together as a family and just kind of keep each other on par with like where we are with that. It's just so fun. We have plans to potentially get a vacation home in Hawaii. And this is something that we decided during the quarantine that, once things get back to normal, we're going to sell one of our rental homes here in San Diego, and then we're going to purchase a vacation home so that we can live in Hawaii for 2 months out of the year, and we're going to Airbnb it the rest of the time. That came out of nowhere. It came out of a conversation of just where do we want to go? What's our dream now, right? And that's so cool, because now we have this thing that we can look forward to. No, we don't know when it's going to happen or how much it's going to cost. We yes, have been on Zillow and Redfin quite a bit just to kind of dream together, but it's just been fun to have those things to look forward to together. And that's something that we feel we always need, especially during these times when we can't go anywhere, we can't see any friends. Just continuing to dream together has been really key for us.
It's funny that you ended up with those words, dream together, because that's exactly what I was going to reflect back to. I think it's awesome, because I think a lot in marriages, we have the man's dreaming about one thing, the woman's dreaming about another, and we're so busy with work and the kids and everything. And we never really come together sometimes just to talk about, what does our vision look like?
Yeah.
We're really big on questions as well, my wife and I. And like you, we always talk about like, well, what does 12 months look like from now? What does 3 years look like from now? What does 5 years look like from now? Another really fascinating question is, if you and I were celebrating the beautiful life that we created together as we were sitting out on our deck, with a glass of wine 20 years from now, what things had to have happened that haven't happened yet? Mm-hmm. That really just, you talk about alignment and core values and things that we can dream big together and do together. I mean, I think that that's one thing that we as married couples, we don't do very often, right? And I think it's important to take those productive pauses. Do you guys strategically, you know, have times of the year, times of the months where you're like, you know what, let's sit down and just revisit some conversations and talk about these things?
Yeah, it's always around New Year. New Year is a good time to kind of reflect on what do we want the next year to be like. I mean, we definitely had plans for 2020, but of course things didn't go the way they were supposed to. And, we took some time during the pandemic to chat and sort of realign and talk about the future. And of course, we're going to probably do that again come December. I mean, literally like New Year's Eve is very traditional for us. Kids are down, they're sleeping, and we're just talking about all the fun things, like literally dreaming about the year together and all the fun things we're going to do, and the things that we hope to achieve and the growth that we hope to see within our children. And that alignment, like you said, is absolutely key. How in the world can two different people come together without actually discussing this? Right? There's no way. It just boggles my mind that we can just get so into our work and so into the daily life that we forget about kind of like the most important thing. Where are we going with this? What are the goals that we have? I don't want to be on that deck 20 years from now and just go, what the heck happened? What did we do? We missed out on so many opportunities. We should have talked about these things before. That would be the worst.
It would be.
I want to live on that deck and just go clink glasses and go, man, I wouldn't change a thing,
I say a quote on this show a lot, and I heard it from one of our guests, and that is, the definition of hell is meeting the man that we could have been when we're on our deathbed. And that's a powerful thing. And it's just like, it's the exact same analogy you just shared of, if we're on the patio or the deck or whatever, and we're talking about the life, we're like, oh my gosh, we have all these regrets we didn't do. We were so busy. In our community, we call it the drift, the wash, rinse, repeat, where we're just doing the same thing over and over again, not taking advantage of the amazing moments that could be had we just been a little bit more intentional. Mm-hmm. And man, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. As we wrap,
fun.
Yeah, it has been fun. Get to hear a side of Pat that it's not all business. Like I'm sure a lot of podcasts you're on. That's what strategy and email marketing and all these things.
Yeah.
It's been really, really fun. I know you have a new book out, Super Fans. I know you're doing a lot of different things with your membership site, and just you're very spread out as far as things that you're doing. But I want to make sure that the audience can connect with you, your book, and just everything that you're doing.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. The book is called Super Fans, and it's about this idea that, a lot of businesses, we just go for the customer and then the relationship's over. But I want you to think about the entire sort of spectrum of the ways that people can have different moments with you, whether they just find you or they've been a customer for life, how we can attain super fans who can support us. And the cool thing is, even when you do the math, like if you actually do math here, 1,000 true fans, 1,000 super fans times $100 a year, like a super fan might pay way more than that. I mean, we pay more than $100 a month for things that we don't even use as a society, right? Like cable TV and whatever. So $100 a year is nothing. 1,000 people times $100 a year, that's your 6-figure business right there, right? So I say, instead of trying to get millions of visitors to your website and millions of views on your TikToks and on your videos, why don't we just get 1,000 people who really can be a part of our tribe? And this book will tell you how to do that. And the cool thing is, when you really go down into the details of the math, that's one new fan a day for less than 3 years. I mean, it really puts into perspective this idea of what building a business can actually be versus what we think it should be. And we don't have to create the next Uber. We don't need to create the next fidget spinner. We just have to create a place for people to come to get the help that they need and to connect with each other. And that's what this book will do. And obviously you're doing a great job of that. And I don't have to teach you any of this stuff, but anybody out there who wants to build a strong, loyal following where a community can be formed, Superfans would be the way to do it for sure. And of course, I'm also everywhere at Pat Flynn on social media and, smartpassiveincome.com. We've mentioned my YouTube channel is growing pretty strong. I've been going live every day there for 240 days straight since March, to show up and help people who have questions because they've gotten laid off or need help to build their business during these times. So probably going to be going for at least 365. We'll see what happens after that, but it's become a fun little streak that I don't want to break right now. And maybe I'll see you there.
Absolutely. Well, guys, Don't even worry about that. We're going to have all the links in the show notes for you. All you have to do is go to gooddadproject.com/302 for this particular episode. Pat, as we close out here, man, again, I know you're a humble guy, and I know you do very, very well in business, but I came across you 8 years ago, and just a really cool observation about you as a man, husband, father, is that not too long ago, I went back to your very first show. To hear.
So bad.
I know, right? Anytime a guy connects with me, I'm always like, and they're like, man, I've been listening to you for the past 5 years. I'm like, sorry about the first year. I was just trying to get my wheels under me. But anyway, you're still this, no matter how wonderful you've done in business, you're still this genuine human being and a family man. And I just appreciate you coming on and sharing how you've grown a very successful business, but you haven't forgotten about the people that mean most to you. And that is incredibly cool. Yeah, you bet.
Thank you. Well, the truth is I wouldn't be here without him. So I owe them everything. I owe my audience everything. I owe my family everything. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate you. And yeah, don't go listen to episode 1, by the way. Just go to like the latest episodes if you want to listen to the podcast.
We'll have a link for that in the show notes. I'm kidding. We won't. But no, guys, like I said, you can find all the links. Go to gooddadproject.com/302.